Today is the 30th of September. It is 18:19. Sun's pretty low on the horizon, man. It creeps up on you, doesn't it? Creeps up on you. Longer nights, shorter days. Winter's coming. So this is just kind of my thoughts on hurricanes and damage, and I came to a conclusion a long time ago: the best way to prevent catastrophic property damage, catastrophic loss of life when it comes to hurricanes and floods, to be honest with you. You very rarely ever hear about somebody, homes on a lake, or a pond, getting flooded. And why is that? Well, because those bodies of water are pretty stationary. We as human beings, we like to be around water. Real estate next to water, you pay for it. It's very expensive. So what do people do? We build homes on shorelines, be it the ocean, lake, or rivers. And I'm kind of an old river rat. I loved fishing back in the day. In my 20s, I wasn't chasing women in my 20s. I was chasing fish when I was in my 20s. And I was always on a river somewhere. Every river that by me, I know pretty well. And it didn't take long for me to figure out where the floodplains of these rivers historically were, because you can see how the river was laid out, but they've been altered so much because we put dams on them. And if you look at any river, you will see that it's generally, you have the river basin, and then you have this flat area out around it, and then somewhere along the line it goes up. Okay, and dams have artificially made the pools between the rivers into slow-moving lakes, so to speak. Like, take the Mississippi for an example. There's different pools have a different number between each dam. But the Mississippi was never that wide in the beginning. It never was, because we dammed it. You know, it expanded its range. And what you had on the outside of that was floodplain. You had marshes, you had wetlands all up and down that. And every time the river flooded, it spread out in that historic floodplain. Well, what did we do? Well, we dammed the rivers up. We channelized the rivers. And we started either farming or building on the rivers. So when we have floods, you get damage. You get property loss. You get loss of life if people don't get out of the way. We caused that. Now, as far as hurricanes go, well, historically speaking, there's nothing new about hurricanes, particularly in the Gulf Coast. That's always been there. One of my favorite, I shouldn't say favorite, but one of the stories I find interesting from history is not many people realize that Pensacola, Florida, actually was the they call it the city of five flags, because it flew five flags over its history. And the first people that started a settlement there were actually the Spaniards, long before St. Augustine. But a hurricane came and wiped them out, and nobody built anything. Then St. Augustine was built like 100 years later. Historically speaking, this is a part of the world where we have a lot of, hurricanes. And in just like the Midwest has more tornadoes than any other part of the world because of the way the layout of the land and so on and so forth. But the thing is when the ocean wants its property back, it takes it back. We shouldn't be building homes close to the historic areas where hurricanes hit. We shouldn't be building homes. We shouldn't be putting buildings on beaches. We shouldn't be doing any of that. If anything, we should be a couple miles inland. Now, I don't know. I know mathematically and scientifically you can figure out historically where those waters always pushed, how far the storm surge will push in, and you should build on the edges of that versus on the shoreline. So I looked at this devastation that happened down in Fort Myers, and it's horrible. It's horrible. But you know what? Look at, there's trees standing. There's bushes still standing. Even though there were 100 and something mile an hour winds. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that nature is pretty resilient and they can deal with that. We can't. We can't. And we do all these crazy things and we get property damage because of it. So it's a very simple solution, but no one will ever do it. No one will ever do it. Do not build homes along the rivers. Do not build homes in their floodplains. And same thing with as far as the ocean goes with hurricanes. Don't build in the areas where hurricanes have traditionally hit landfall, and that's anywhere from Galveston, Texas, all around the Gulf, all the way down to Florida, the peninsula of Florida, and up the East Coast. If you build inland X amount of miles, and like I said, I don't know how many what is that? I don't know scientifically what that would be. And here's the other part of this. The federal government keeps allowing this to happen. How so? Well, insurance companies will not generally give you insurance to cover hurricane damage or flood damage when you live in these areas. So what does the government do? Well, you can get insurance from the government. So these people lose their homes and stuff when they're right on the freaking ocean. They rebuild them because the federal government gives them the money. They pay for the insurance through the federal government. So under normal circumstances, you wouldn't build there again. And I thought of another one the other day, though it's not quite as drastic or predictable, but you should not build homes at the bases of volcanoes. And if you go out to the Pacific Northwest, there's a lot of dormant volcanoes out there that we have built massive cities around. Here, just an example off the top of my head is Pompeii. Pompeii, it was built at the at the base of Mount Vesuvius. It was a Roman city, and Vesuvius went kaput, blew its top in around 70 AD. And well, we all know how that ended. But look at Pompeii now. Go and look and see what they built up again over the centuries. They rebuilt it. What happens when Pompeii goes again? Because it's going to go some other time. It may not be in my lifetime or your lifetime, but it's going to go. We shouldn't build around the bases of volcanoes. But human beings are going to do what they do, and I feel bad for everybody that lost their homes and their cars and everything. But man, don't live against the ocean like that. My neighbor's got a condo on the beach in Sarasota. Just one good storm, it's all over. What good is it then? I don't know, man. That's just my thought. But if you don't want to have this type of destruction, don't build where the destruction is going to be. It's just really that simple. Till next time.